Cops' lies fall apart in court as black woman reveals her position in a U.S. intelligence agency. A hush fell over the packed courtroom. Spectators held their breath as they watched the fierce gaze of Amelia Jefferson. A poised black woman in an impeccably tailored suit faced down the police officer who had accused her of a crime she swore she did not commit. The officer's confident smirk wavered as Amelia's words sliced through the silence, exposing discrepancies in his testimony. She had endured weeks of public scorn and blatant injustice, but as Amelia took a slow, measured step forward to reveal her true identity, a proud member of a top U.S. intelligence agency, the stunned crowd knew the tide had turned. Amelia Jefferson's life had changed in the blink of an eye on a warm Friday evening in June. The familiar hum of late-night traffic punctuated the air as she walked home from her best friend Sharice's birthday dinner in downtown Atlanta. It had been a night of laughter, dancing, and catching up, and Amelia's cheeks still felt warm from the intense conversation and a cocktail or two. The city lights shimmered against the Georgia skyline, reflecting a gentle glow on Amelia's freshly twisted braids. She clutched her purse close to her side, feeling the weight of her phone within. There, she had text messages from her fiancé Jordan, who was away on a business trip. If everything went smoothly, she would be home, safe and sound, in 20 minutes. The scuffle of footsteps behind her made her turn. A patrol car cruised down the empty stretch of road, its headlights illuminating the street in short bursts. Another block or two, and Amelia would be in front of her apartment complex's secure entrance. Then the siren whooped, a sharp reminder of authority cutting through the night. She froze, heart pounding, watching as the police vehicle pulled over to the curb. A white officer, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped out. His face was set in an unreadable mask. Amelia had done nothing wrong, so confusion and a faint spike of anxiety took hold. "Ma'am," he said, voice taut, "stop right there." It was a command more than a request, and Amelia's instincts flared. Something about his tone set her on edge. She had grown accustomed to trusting her intuition over the years. Still, Amelia complied, turning fully to face him with her hands raised slightly in a non-threatening gesture. "What's going on, officer?" she asked, striving to keep her voice level. His nameplate read, Officer Reese. He walked a slow circle around her, shining his flashlight without a shred of courtesy, making Amelia squint. "We got a report of a woman matching your description causing trouble in this neighborhood," he said, face impassive. Amelia's jaw tightened. She pressed her lips together, forcing herself to remain calm. "Trouble? I'm just walking home. You might have the wrong person." Officer Reese shifted on his feet, looking Amelia up and down like he was waiting for her to do something incriminating. "I'm going to need to see some ID," he insisted. Amelia complied, reaching into her bag slowly. She had no intention of making any sudden moves, especially given how the officer seemed keyed up. She handed him her driver's license, noticing a faint scowl deepen across his features. He pulled out his own phone and stepped aside. Amelia glanced around. There were no witnesses, no other pedestrians in sight. Something about the scene felt unnaturally tense. The moment Officer Reese returned, Amelia recognized the shift. His lips curved into a self-satisfied smirk. "Ma'am," he drawled, "I need to ask you a few questions about a break-in reported in this vicinity earlier." Amelia's pulse sped up. A break-in? She had been at the restaurant all night with friends who could vouch for her, and yet she sensed he had already made up his mind about her guilt. "Officer, I was celebrating my friend's birthday downtown. I just got out of an Uber 2 blocks from here because the traffic was a mess. Please, you can call Sharice or check with the restaurant. I have receipts," Amelia explained, her voice laced with urgency. Officer Reese cocked his head, eyes scrutinizing Amelia's every gesture. "People can craft alibis, you know," he said. "I've got probable cause here. You fit the description. Hand over your purse, please." Anxiety surged through Amelia. Her instincts screamed that she was being profiled. But Amelia was no ordinary bystander. She had extensive training, though not something she could easily reveal to an officer. Not yet, anyway. Reluctantly, she unzipped her bag, handed it over, and watched Officer Reese rummage through it. He pulled out her phone, her keys, a lipstick, a small wallet. Slowly, like he expected to find contraband, he ran his flashlight into every pocket and seam. Nothing. His smirk faltered, but instead of letting her go, he seemed annoyed he hadn't found evidence that might incriminate her. Amelia felt dread coil in her stomach. This was more than a mistaken identity. Something about the officer's posture suggested a personal agenda. "Looks clean," he said at last, though it pained him to admit it. "Still, I need you to come down to the station to give a statement." Amelia's mind raced. She had done nothing wrong. She knew her rights, and she also knew what typically happened when you ended up in a small interrogation room with no advocate. She spoke calmly. "Am I under arrest?" "You're being detained for questioning," he answered evasively. "I'm not sure yet if I have enough to charge you." Amelia's breath came shallow. She silently prayed that logic would prevail, that reason would surface in this officer's mind. But his stoic expression only grew more stony as he reached for a pair of handcuffs. Amelia felt her heart pounding in her ears. When the metal closed around her wrists, she couldn't suppress a tremor of fear. She'd never been on this side of the law. She had vowed to serve and protect the country in ways most civilians would never know. Yet here she was, a single black woman in the dark, cuffed in front of an officer who gave every indication he was more than ready to see her behind bars. She was placed in the back of the patrol car, the dank smell of rubber and stale sweat invading her senses. As the engine roared to life and they pulled away, Amelia stared out the window, her thoughts whirling. If this man had decided she was a scapegoat, her only hope lay in the truth she held close, her real identity. Yet she knew it would be a last resort to reveal it. Protocol demanded secrecy, even if her life was about to spiral out of control. Word of Amelia Jefferson's arrest spread quickly through her circle of friends. Charisse, who had been the last to see Amelia at the birthday celebration, was frantic when Amelia never arrived home. She began calling Amelia's phone, only to receive no answer. Jordan, Amelia's fiancé, was already en route from his work trip in Chicago. The moment he heard the news, he began trying to reach Amelia. Meanwhile, Amelia sat in a small interrogation room at the precinct. The fluorescent lights above buzzed, casting a dull, yellowish glow. Officer Reese stood outside in the hallway, discussing Amelia's case with another officer. Amelia could hear snippets of conversation through the flimsy door. Phrases like probable cause, resisting, and typical suspect. She tightened her fingers around the edge of the table to keep her composure. A short time later, a detective with salt and pepper hair and dark circles under his eyes entered. He carried a file in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. His name tag read Detective Morrow. He offered Amelia a curt nod and sat across from her. Studying Amelia, he seemed more tired than aggressive. "Miss Jefferson," Detective Morrow began, "I understand you were stopped by Officer Reese in connection to a break-in in this neighborhood. The homeowner reported seeing a woman leaving the scene. We have limited witness testimony." Amelia breathed in slowly. She had nothing to hide, but was wary about revealing too much. "I've got an alibi, Detective. I was at a birthday party downtown for most of the evening. I can provide the names of my friends, and the restaurant can verify my presence via receipts and security footage. I'm innocent." Detective Morrow sipped his coffee, then set it aside. His expression was neutral, though Amelia sensed a flicker of sympathy behind his eyes. "That's what we're trying to figure out," he said. "Officer Reese claims you matched the description perfectly, and that you behaved suspiciously when approached." A prick of anger rose in Amelia. "I only asked if I was under arrest or not. There's nothing suspicious about knowing my rights." Detective Morrow flipped through a few pages in his folder. Amelia could see that the contents included a grainy photo of a woman in a dark hoodie and a brief, typed summary of the break-in. The homeowner described a woman around 5'7" to 5'10" with braids. "Pretty vague if you ask me," he admitted. "And you're not wearing a hoodie or carrying any stolen property. So far, the evidence is circumstantial at best." Amelia nodded, relief fluttering within her. But she knew better than to relax entirely. Officer Reese's personal determination to pin this on her might still cause trouble. "You can hold me," Amelia continued, carefully mustering a neutral tone. "But it won't change the fact that I was somewhere else entirely. And if you check the security footage from the downtown restaurant, you'll confirm that." Detective Morrow studied her face for a moment, as though weighing the sincerity in her eyes. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's get that footage, talk to your friends, and see what we can confirm." He rose to his feet. Amelia observed that although Morrow was doing his job, something about this entire situation felt off. The tension in the precinct was thicker than usual, as though Amelia's presence was stirring a deeper issue. She saw Officer Reese through the interrogation room window, arms folded, glaring. She had no idea what personal vendetta he might hold, but Amelia was certain that this was about more than a simple break-in. After waiting another hour, Amelia was informed, somewhat begrudgingly, that they would let her go if her alibi checked out. She was told to stay within city limits, that she might be called back for more questions. As Amelia was released from the holding cell, Charisse was there waiting for her in the lobby, tears in her eyes. They hugged tightly, Amelia fighting the urge to collapse under the weight of the injustice she had just faced. "Girl, let's get you home," Charisse whispered. "I'm so sorry." Amelia nodded, exhaustion radiating through her limbs. She was beyond grateful for Charisse's presence, yet her mind replayed everything that had happened. The abrupt stop, the targeting glint in Officer Reese's eyes, the humiliating handcuffing, the hours in the precinct. Officer Reese's hostility still crackled in her memory. Amelia vowed to keep an eye on him. Walking out of the station, Amelia looked up at the neon sign that read, "Atlanta Police Department Zone 5. It glowed in the darkness like a reminder of the night's events. She had her freedom, for now, but she also had a new mission. She wanted the truth to come to light, not only for herself, but for the countless others whose stories never made it out of the interrogation room. Amelia Jefferson's path to that claustrophobic interrogation room hadn't been typical. A proud graduate of Howard University, Amelia had studied criminology and computer science. Driven by an unwavering sense of justice, she had applied to multiple agencies, eventually completing an exhaustive and highly confidential process to land a position in a specialized division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. Early in her career, Amelia had shown an astonishing aptitude for intelligence analysis and undercover work. She moved seamlessly between roles, each time proving her worth in scenarios that demanded quick thinking, emotional resilience, and a talent for blending in. Yet Amelia never paraded her FBI credentials in front of anyone. Secrecy was part of her job. In her personal life, she told friends and family she worked as a consultant in data security. Jordan was aware that Amelia did something more sensitive. He had gleaned as much from her irregular hours and hush-hush phone calls, but she kept official details strictly under wraps. The only official marker of her job was a single black-and-white photo pinned in her locked desk drawer at home. Amelia, standing in front of the main entrance to the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. The memory of her training days filled her with pride and the sense of duty that had guided her life choices ever since. When Amelia had been forced into that squad car, a tempest of conflicting ideas had raged within her. Part of her wanted to flash her badge, present her credentials, and immediately put this obviously power-tripping officer in his place. But Amelia was painfully aware of the hush-hush protocols around her identity. Officers in local police departments generally were not privy to her specialized role. Additionally, she had learned that revealing her FBI status too soon could compromise ongoing investigations. Every instinct in her told her to wait, to handle this by the book, and allow the local system to do its job, unless it became absolutely necessary to unmask herself. Back in her apartment the next morning, Amelia woke to the sound of her phone buzzing repeatedly. She had missed calls and voicemails from Jordan. She quickly called him back. Baby, are you okay?" His voice came through, urgent and anxious. "I got in late last night and went straight to your place, but you were already asleep." Amelia sighed, half in relief. I'm fine now. It was a mess at the station. She briefly summarized the encounter, her voice tight with lingering anger and hurt. Jordan's tone turned steely. I can't believe they did that to you. And that officer, he has no clue who he's dealing with. Amelia closed her eyes. She understood Jordan's frustration. He knew enough about her real job to know she wasn't some easy target. But Amelia also recognized that revealing her identity prematurely could escalate tensions. She wanted the truth to come out in a more official setting, if it ever did. I'm meeting with an attorney this afternoon, Amelia said. I need to be proactive. If they decide to charge me, even without real evidence, I need legal representation. I also want to file a complaint about the arrest. There was no reason for Reese to drag me in. Jordan agreed, promising to accompany her. Before ending the call, he reminded her they were a team. Amelia felt a surge of warmth. On days like these, his unwavering support was a lifeline. That afternoon, Amelia and Jordan drove together to a local law office. The attorney, Linda Polk, had been recommended by one of Amelia's sorority sisters. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman with a stern expression and a talent for spotting holes in a prosecution's argument. As they sat around a polished oak table, Amelia recounted everything from start to finish. Linda nodded, occasionally jotting down notes. You were never read your Miranda rights? Linda asked, pressing her pen firmly to the page. Amelia shook her head. No. Reese just put the cuffs on me and said I was being taken in for questioning. He never told me I had the right to remain silent. Linda exchanged a look with Amelia that seemed to confirm the seriousness of the breach. I'll look into that. For now, Miss Jefferson, rest assured there's not enough evidence here for any legitimate charge. If the police keep pushing, we'll request a formal hearing. A knot in Amelia's chest loosened. She flashed Linda a grateful smile. Thank you. The worst part is I know there are people who go through this and don't have the resources or support. It's not right. Linda patted Amelia's hand. One step at a time. Let's get you squared away first, then see what else we can do. As they left, Amelia couldn't shake the sense that Officer Reese's unwavering certainty about her guilt was a ticking time bomb. On the drive home, Jordan navigated Atlanta's busy streets, while Amelia stared out the window, her mind drifting to the locked drawer in her bedroom. Inside was her black leather credential case, her official proof that she was an agent in a specialized unit of the FBI. She had never expected to use it to defend herself against a local cop's bigotry or corruption. But each new turn of events suggested that if cornered, Amelia would have to do precisely that. Days turned into a week, and Amelia tried her best to resume a semblance of normalcy. She returned to her day-to-day obligations, carefully avoiding talk of her predicament with co-workers and acquaintances. The humiliating arrest had not made local headlines. Atlanta was a big city, and Amelia's story was just one among countless incidents. Still, word spread through Amelia's circle. Friends, outraged, offered support or posted about it online, urging people to stand up against racial profiling. Amelia's phone buzzed frequently with messages of solidarity. Her family, however, had been left largely in the dark. Amelia's mother, living in a small town just outside Birmingham, Alabama, would worry herself sick if she knew the full scope. For now, Amelia kept the details vague. She didn't want to add to her mother's concerns, especially when Amelia believed the matter would be resolved soon. Then one afternoon, Amelia's world tilted again. She was exiting her apartment building, heading to an appointment with Linda, when she spotted a police cruiser across the street. A chill traced up her spine. Officer Reese, perched in the driver's seat, had his eyes fixed on her. The moment Amelia looked at him, he spoke into his radio and pulled away. Amelia watched the vehicle vanish around a corner, her pulse pounding. Was he stalking her, trying to intimidate her? The brazen act infuriated her, but she clung to her resolve. She was not about to be frightened into hiding. At Linda's office, Amelia recounted the incident. Linda's brow furrowed. That's harassment, she declared. If it happens again, document it. Date, time, place, keep a record. We'll use it if we have to escalate the complaint. The tension only grew when Amelia met with Detective Morrow the following day. He had asked her to come in to finalize her statement, promising it was just a formality. "I reviewed the footage from that restaurant," Morrow said, leaning back in his chair. "It confirms you were there for most of the evening. You clearly had no time to commit this crime." Amelia exhaled, a wave of relief washing over her. "Does that mean I'm cleared?" Morrow pursed his lips. "As far as I'm concerned, the break-in case won't be pinned on you. Officer Reese, however, is claiming you resisted arrest. He's filed a separate report stating that you acted in a disorderly manner, used abusive language, and threatened him." Amelia's mouth fell open. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. "That's a lie," she said firmly. "I was never disorderly. I asked him if I was under arrest, that's all. I did not threaten him. There should be body cam footage to disprove this." Detective Morrow nodded. "I've requested the footage, but it's missing." A wave of nausea rolled through Amelia. Missing body cam footage? That was convenient for Officer Reese. She felt her hands clench into fists. Anger and helplessness warred inside her. "Look," Morrow added, "I don't like this any more than you do. Internal affairs might get involved if we keep pushing. I'm telling you this off the record. Reese has had complaints against him in the past. He's got a clean record on paper, but there's chatter that not all of his body cam videos make it into evidence." Amelia's jaw tightened. This was bigger than a single arrest. She felt the gravity of a system that enabled officers like Reese to falsify reports and get away with it. She thought of all the faces she had seen flash across news screens, black men and women wrongfully arrested or worse. That night in the squad car, Amelia had felt a fraction of that terror, and she realized she was in a position to do something about it. Stepping out of the precinct, Amelia tried to calm the fury in her chest. The possibility of a false charge for resisting arrest would have major implications on her life, personally, professionally, and financially. She could not allow that narrative to go unchallenged. When Amelia got home, she shut the door, locked it, and opened that drawer. The credential case lay there cold and silent. She picked it up, thumbed over the raised gold letters, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Her reflection in the polished leather stared back at her, resolute, perhaps a bit frightened but unwilling to bend. Amelia decided then and there that if Officer Reese insisted on lying, she would reveal her hand. She had followed the rules, maintained her cover, but now she was cornered. She was not just fighting for herself, but for the unprotected folks in her community who had no such badge in their drawers. 3 days later, Amelia received an unexpected phone call from Linda. "Amelia, it appears that the district attorney's office is considering pressing the resisting arrest charge against you, citing Reese's report." Amelia felt her stomach drop. "Linda, this is insane. I have no criminal record, and I didn't resist anything. Where is the logic?" Linda's tone was grim. "Officer Reese is claiming that you tried to flee and nearly knocked him over in the process. There's no body cam footage to contradict him, so it's his word against yours." Amelia's mind swirled. She needed to bring out the big guns. "Linda, I might have a way to fight this, but it involves sensitive information about my background. I wasn't sure if I should mention this before, but I'm not just a consultant. I'm with the FBI." A pause crackled through the line. "What?" Linda exclaimed. Please keep your voice down," Amelia advised, even though Linda was the only one in her office. "I'm not part of a routine department. It's specialized. But yes, I'm a federal agent." Linda let out a low whistle. "Amelia, that changes things. If we can show that you have a deep knowledge of law enforcement procedures, it directly contradicts the idea that you'd resist. You would know the best course of action is to remain calm and comply, unless this was an ambush. Still, we'll need to be careful about how we use this information. It could be beneficial, or it could stir up bigger issues, especially if the local PD thinks the feds are stepping on their toes." Amelia knew that was a risk. "It's a last resort, Linda, but I'm prepared if it comes to that. Right now, I want to gather any evidence we can to fight this charge using normal channels. If that fails, we'll reveal my credentials. Linda agreed, and they ended the call with a plan to keep investigating. Amelia shut her eyes, leaning against the wall for support. This was happening too fast. Every step felt like a plunge into deeper waters. Over the following week, Amelia and Linda combed through any possible witnesses. Charisse, Jordan, and Amelia's friend, who had dropped her off a few blocks from home, offered to testify about Amelia's calm demeanor that evening. The restaurant staff also confirmed Amelia's good spirits and that she left without incident. However, none of them were on the street during the arrest. Amelia felt the walls closing in. Officer Reese's false testimony, coupled with the missing body cam footage, made Amelia's innocence precarious. Then on a humid Tuesday morning, Amelia was summoned for her first court hearing. She arrived with Linda by her side. The courtroom was modest, rows of wooden benches, fluorescent lights overhead, the judge's bench elevated at the front. Amelia's heart pounded as she saw Officer Reese seated with the prosecution. His smug grin made her skin crawl. He shot Amelia a quick glance, as though triumphant in his belief he was about to secure a victory. The hearing commenced. The prosecution laid out the charge of resisting arrest and disturbing the peace. Amelia clung to her composure as the prosecutor spoke of Amelia's supposed flight from the officer and her alleged belligerence. Linda then presented Amelia's side, a woman with a clean record, an upstanding member of the community, a professional with no reason to resist. Linda requested the body cam footage. The prosecutor replied that it was unavailable due to a technical malfunction. Amelia's fists clenched beneath the table. The judge, a middle-aged man with a stern face, seemed conflicted. Without the body cam footage, we have only statements and circumstantial evidence. Miss Jefferson's alibi for the break-in is solid, so we're not discussing that. This is purely a matter of her conduct during the stop. Linda interjected, her voice firm. Your Honor, I believe there are inconsistencies in Officer Reese's report. My client did not resist arrest. We suspect the body cam footage would confirm that, if it hadn't conveniently disappeared. The prosecution objected to the notion of calling it a convenience, leading to a tense back and forth. Meanwhile, Amelia observed Officer Reese's posture, smug, relaxed, like a cat that had trapped its prey. She felt her anger flicker dangerously, but a calm overshadowed her too, because she knew something none of them did. She had an ace up her sleeve. The judge, after weighing the arguments, decided the case would proceed to trial if the DA's office felt it had enough evidence. Amelia's stomach churned. She could face a trial over something she had not done. The entire system could turn her life upside down. She felt Jordan's reassuring hand on her shoulder. She straightened, meeting Reese's gaze with quiet defiance. Let him enjoy his moment. He had no idea of the storm that was about to come his way. 2 days after the preliminary hearing, Amelia received an unlikely phone call from an unfamiliar number. When she answered, a shaky male voice spoke up, identifying himself as Xavier Mitchell, an officer who occasionally partnered with Reese. I got your number from a mutual acquaintance, he said nervously. I need to talk to you, Miss Jefferson, but not on the record. Amelia's curiosity piqued. She arranged to meet him at a quiet diner on the outskirts of the city, away from prying eyes. Jordan insisted on accompanying her for safety. That evening, they found Xavier sitting in a booth with a half-drunk cup of coffee. He had a jittery energy, glancing around as though expecting to see Reese at any moment. Thank you for meeting me, he said, voice low. I've been on the force 5 years. I've seen Reese do some questionable things, but I never had proof. Never found the courage to speak out, but this time it's gone too far. Amelia nodded, leaning forward. I'm listening. Xavier took a long breath. Reese is lying about you. That night he told me he had a tip about suspicious activity in the neighborhood, but no calls actually came through dispatch. I didn't think much of it at the time, but later, I realized the story didn't add up. He specifically drove out there hoping to pick up somebody he could pin the break-in on. Jordan's jaw clenched. So he was hunting for a scapegoat? Xavier squirmed, guilt etched in his features. He's been known to target black folks walking alone at night in that area. I didn't realize how far he'd go until I saw how determined he was to follow through with the false statements. He wouldn't let up about how you tried to run, how you supposedly yelled at him. But Miss Jefferson, I saw the dashcam footage briefly before it was a lost. You never resisted. You stood there calmly the whole time. Amelia's heart leapt. Dashcam footage? So it existed? Xavier nodded. Yes, it did. I think Reese destroyed it, or had someone do it for him. That's a serious offense, but the problem is I don't have a copy. I don't know if anyone else does, but if I'm called to testify, I can say what I saw. Amelia was torn between relief and frustration. Thank you, she said quietly. This could be a game changer, but you might face backlash from within the department if you blow the whistle. Xavier's eyes dropped. Yeah, I know. I've been wrestling with this for days, but I can't in good conscience let an innocent person be framed. Amelia gently placed a hand on Xavier's. I appreciate your courage. Just be careful. After exchanging contact information, Amelia and Jordan left, both stunned by the revelation. A sliver of hope flickered in Amelia. Reese's carefully orchestrated lie had cracks in it, and with Xavier's testimony, Amelia might be able to shatter the entire false narrative. That night, Amelia spoke with Linda, who was thrilled to hear the news. This is exactly the witness we need, Linda said. If this goes to trial and Xavier is willing to testify, the prosecution's case will collapse. They'll be forced to drop the charges, or risk a very public embarrassment. A hint of relief washed over Amelia, though she remained guarded. Reese was clearly the type to do whatever it took to protect himself, even if that meant silencing potential witnesses. Amelia prayed that Xavier would stay safe until the trial. Time crept forward. Another week passed, and Amelia started to see small signs that her ordeal might be nearing an end. Detective Morrow became more open in acknowledging Amelia's innocence. The district attorney's office seemed increasingly uncertain about going forward with the charges. Perhaps Linda's relentless pressure and the possibility of a key witness, Xavier, had them rethinking. But Amelia's relief was short-lived. A friend in the department texted her one afternoon to say that new evidence had been found incriminating Amelia. Photographs of a woman in Amelia's exact outfit on the night of the arrest, climbing over a fence near the site of the break-in. Amelia's friend suspected these photos were doctored, or at least wrongly attributed, as the timestamps seemed off. Amelia felt cold dread. Reese wasn't giving up. He was doubling down. That evening, Amelia sat on her couch, eyes glued to her phone screen, scrolling through the alleged new evidence. The woman in the blurry photo had braids, wore a similar jacket, but Amelia noted subtle discrepancies. The figure's body shape was different, and the date stamp in the corner looked altered. Amelia forwarded it all to Linda. Her mind burned with anger and fear. Reese was forging evidence now. Amelia realized she might have no choice but to play her trump card sooner rather than later. If the city was about to be dragged into a sensational trial, one that threatened Amelia's freedom, she would not go down quietly. For so long, she had kept her identity a secret to protect her mission and her agency. But there were times when the truth was more powerful than secrecy, and Amelia sensed that moment was upon her. 2 weeks later, Amelia arrived at the Fulton County Courthouse for what was expected to be a tense hearing. The DA had submitted these new photographs as evidence, seeking to bolster the case. Linda planned to challenge their authenticity. The outcome of this hearing could decide whether Amelia's case would be dismissed or set for a full trial. Amelia wore a conservative black suit and walked into the courtroom with her head held high. Jordan trailed close behind, offering silent support. When she took her seat at the defense table, she caught a glimpse of Officer Reese. He exuded smugness, arms folded as he exchanged whispers with the prosecutor. Amelia suppressed the anger roiling within her. She had to remain calm. The hearing began. The prosecutor presented the new photos and argued that, combined with Reese's sworn statement, they showed Amelia in the vicinity of the break-in. Linda pounced on the questionable timestamps and the physical inconsistencies. She demanded to know why these photos had surfaced so late in the case. The judge listened intently, expression revealing little. Then Linda announced, "Your Honor, the defense intends to introduce a piece of information about Miss Jefferson that is crucial to determining her credibility and the plausibility of these allegations." The prosecutor objected, claiming irrelevance, but Linda pressed on. "Miss Jefferson is not merely an average citizen. She has undergone extensive law enforcement training. She is, in fact, a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation." A collective hush enveloped the room. Jaws dropped, and Officer Reese sat up straighter, eyes wide. Amelia felt the weight of dozens of stares. The judge peered over his glasses, lips parted in shock. Linda continued, voice unwavering. "We have documentation from the FBI that confirms Miss Jefferson's active status. She understands investigative procedures intimately and would know better than to resist arrest in such a blatant manner. Moreover, her training grants her the skill to recognize and document any misconduct. If Miss Jefferson were truly at the scene of a crime, she would have had the knowledge to avoid detection entirely, assuming she had criminal intent, which she clearly does not." A wave of murmurs swept through the courtroom. Officer Reese's face visibly paled. The prosecutor seemed momentarily dumbstruck. Amelia, for her part, held her breath, mentally bracing for the avalanche of questions that would follow. The judge called for order. "This is highly unusual," he said, blinking in astonishment. "Miss Jefferson, is it true? You're an agent with the FBI?" Amelia stood, voice unwavering. "Yes, Your Honor. I've been with the Bureau for several years. I maintain a cover in my everyday life to protect ongoing investigations, but I can confirm I hold active credentials." She removed a slim folder from her briefcase and handed it to Linda, who passed it to the judge. Inside were official documents verifying Amelia's employment, stamped with the FBI seal. The tension in the courtroom was almost palpable. The judge studied the documents, then raised his gaze to Amelia. This obviously casts the prosecution's case in a completely different light. The prosecutor tried to regain footing. "Your Honor, the fact that Miss Jefferson is an FBI agent doesn't automatically clear her of wrongdoing. Even law enforcement officers can break the law." Linda nodded. "We agree, which is why we rely on evidence. And in this case, the alleged evidence is compromised, contradictory, and suspiciously timed. Moreover, we intend to call Officer Mitchell to testify about the dashcam footage that was mysteriously lost." All eyes turned to Xavier Mitchell, who sat at the back, shoulders tense. He rose, took a trembling breath, and walked forward. After being sworn in, he proceeded to detail how he had seen the dashcam footage that showed Amelia calmly standing with her hands raised, offering no resistance. He elaborated on how Officer Reese had boasted about targeting Amelia and had taken steps to conceal the footage. The prosecutor's face contorted with frustration, but the momentum was clearly shifting away from them. The judge drummed his fingers on the bench. "It appears there is quite a bit of misconduct swirling around this case. I'm inclined to dismiss the charges against Miss Jefferson on the grounds that the evidence is insufficient and likely fabricated. However, I want to give the prosecution a chance to respond." Caught off guard, the prosecutor stammered something about verifying Xavier's statements, but the judge had heard enough. "For now, Miss Jefferson is free of these charges. The court will not proceed with a trial that is built on questionable evidence and potential perjury." A thunderous silence reigned for half a moment. Then Amelia heard Charisse, Jordan, and others behind her release sighs of relief. Amelia felt something burning in her chest. Vindication mixed with anger at the ordeal. Officer Reese stood abruptly, outraged. "Your Honor, if you allow criminals to—" "Order!" the judge roared, slamming the gavel. "Officer Reese, another outburst from you and I'll hold you in contempt." With that, Amelia's immediate nightmare ended. But she knew the saga wasn't truly over. Reese's lies had been exposed, at least in this context, and Amelia suspected there would be consequences for him, and maybe more revelations to come. Still, as Amelia stood, her hands trembled with a combination of relief and fury. She had been forced to unmask herself in a public courtroom just to secure her freedom. A small price, perhaps, but it highlighted a system that often left ordinary citizens defenseless against authority figures who twisted the truth. In the hours following her dismissal, Amelia was bombarded by a whirlwind of reporters. News of an FBI agent being arrested by a local cop on false charges had leaked. Cameras flashed as Amelia and Linda emerged from the courthouse. Microphones were thrust forward, and reporters asked pointed questions about Amelia's double life, about corruption in the police force, and about the significance of her race in the matter. Amelia made a brief statement. "I am grateful that justice has prevailed in my case. However, I stand here today not only for myself, but for all those who lack the platform or resources to challenge false accusations. I urge the public to remain vigilant, to question irregularities, and to stand against misconduct in law enforcement. The truth should be the foundation of every investigation, every arrest, and every trial." Meanwhile, Officer Reese was called into a private meeting with Internal Affairs. Amelia didn't know the details yet, but rumors spread that he was suspended pending an inquiry into falsified evidence and tampering with body cam footage. Amelia took no pleasure in the man's downfall, but she believed in accountability. Without it, rogue officers would continue to terrorize innocent people. Detective Morrow approached Amelia quietly in the courthouse corridor after the crowd dispersed. He met her gaze with a faint smile. "I had a hunch you were more than you appeared," he said, shaking his head. "I'm sorry this happened in my jurisdiction. We let you down." Amelia nodded. "Thank you for not jumping to conclusions," she replied. "At least you were open to evidence." Morrow lowered his voice. "IA will want to talk to you. I suspect they'll mount an investigation not just into Reese, but anyone else who might have conspired with him. This could get ugly." Amelia's eyebrows arched. She was more than prepared to cooperate, though she knew it might also attract scrutiny from her own agency. An internal swirl of complications could arise. Any FBI agent's involvement in local cases often brought political heat, but Amelia was determined to see it through. Later, Amelia, Jordan, and Charisse retreated to Charisse's house for a celebratory dinner. The tension of the past few weeks still lingered, but the mood was triumphant. Charisse offered a toast. To Amelia, for standing strong against injustice, and to new beginnings. Glasses clinked. Amelia savored the moment, though a part of her remained unsettled. She had revealed her FBI status, which meant a lot of questions from her community and even her mother, who had only known Amelia's vague cover story. The phone calls wouldn't stop anytime soon. Jordan leaned over and kissed Amelia on the forehead. "You did it," he murmured. "I'm so proud of you." Amelia closed her eyes. "Thank you. But it's not over," she said quietly. "Reese is going to face an investigation, and I have a feeling I'll be called to testify again, this time against him. That's going to be another battle." Jordan squeezed her hand. "We'll deal with it together." The next few weeks unspooled in a blur of interviews, statements, and hushed legal proceedings. Internal Affairs subpoenaed Amelia, Officer Xavier Mitchell, and even Detective Morrow to discuss the specifics of Reese's conduct. In each session, Amelia recounted the night of her arrest with measured precision, describing the fear, the profiling, and the lies. Xavier corroborated her account, verifying that the dashcam footage had shown Amelia's compliance. Reese, on the other hand, clung to his story. He claimed that Amelia had attacked him. When pressed about the missing footage, Reese claimed a technical glitch. However, the forensic techs were able to recover fragments from the squad car's device, enough to show Amelia standing calmly in front of Reese. The partial recovery stopped shortly before the audio abruptly cut out, raising serious suspicion that the footage had been deliberately tampered with. During one tense session, Amelia found herself face-to-face with Reese in a conference room at the department's IA office. She sat across a long table, with two investigators at either end. Reese's eyes flicked with hostility. Amelia had faced criminals, terrorists, and far more dangerous individuals in her FBI work, but the personal nature of Reese's betrayal made this confrontation uniquely unsettling. "Officer Reese," one IA investigator said calmly, We have reason to believe the dashcam footage was purposely damaged. The timeline suggests you were the last person to handle the device. Care to explain? Reese glared, refusing to meet Amelia's gaze. I don't know anything about that. My job was to apprehend a suspect. She was the suspect. You had no basis to believe Miss Jefferson was involved, correct? Amelia interjected. Her voice was steady, though her hands balled into fists beneath the table. She fit the description, he snapped, and she was out walking alone at night. And that's all it took to justify an arrest and false claims of resistance? Amelia asked, voice rising slightly. All because I looked like someone you claimed to be searching for? Or was it because I'm black and you needed a quick mark? Reese slammed his hand on the table, rattling the metal surface. The IA investigators intervened, calming the situation. Amelia forced herself to exhale slowly. She refused to be intimidated. When the session concluded, Amelia walked out with her head high, hearing Reese's muttered curses behind her. She knew it wasn't a guaranteed win yet. Internal affairs investigations could drag on, bogged down by procedural red tape. But the evidence was mounting against Reese. Amelia prayed for a swift outcome, as each day more individuals, community organizers, activists, journalists clamored for justice. Amelia's story had become a lightning rod, underscoring systemic issues in local policing. At one point, Amelia received a call from an old friend at the FBI who worked in public relations. The friend cautioned her that the Bureau was supportive of her and condemning the wrongdoing, but they wanted Amelia to tread carefully when speaking publicly, so as not to overshadow official stances or compromise sensitive information. Amelia agreed. She understood the delicate balance between personal advocacy and agency protocol. Still, Amelia found herself more determined than ever to use her platform to advocate for reform. If someone like her, an FBI agent trained to handle high-stakes investigations, could be misrepresented and nearly framed, what about all the ordinary citizens who faced such injustice daily? The question gnawed at her. Amelia refused to let it go. A date was set for the internal hearing that would determine Reese's fate on the force. By then, public pressure had grown, with local media covering the story of the FBI agent arrested for walking while black. Civil rights groups rallied, demanding a thorough investigation into Reese's past cases. Amelia's phone rang non-stop with calls from activists seeking statements or interviews. She navigated each inquiry carefully, refusing to let the spectacle overshadow the main issue of accountability. On the morning of the hearing, Amelia arrived at the police administration building in downtown Atlanta. The conference room was arranged much like a courtroom, with a panel of senior officers and a civilian oversight representative. Amelia and Linda sat on one side, while Reese and his union representative sat on the other. Detective Morrow, Officer Mitchell, and additional witnesses filled the seats, prepared to testify. Over the course of 5 hours, evidence was presented, analyzed, and meticulously dissected. The partial dashcam footage was shown, revealing Amelia's compliant posture. Reese's contradictory statements were challenged, and Officer Mitchell recounted witnessing the original unaltered footage before it vanished. Experts testified that the recording device had been tampered with, implicating someone familiar with the department's systems. Reese's defense tried to argue that Amelia's status as an FBI agent meant she had sophisticated methods to alter the timeline or manipulate data. But Linda shut down that argument effectively, pointing out that Amelia had no incentive to stage such an elaborate frame job for a simple traffic stop. The panel members looked unimpressed by the defense's wild theories. As the hours wore on, it became clear that Reese's story was unraveling. His attempts to cast doubt on Amelia's credibility only highlighted how improbable his account was in contrast to the mounting factual evidence. Amelia watched him squirm under questioning. She felt a swirl of conflicting emotions, rage for the turmoil he had caused her, and a measured satisfaction at seeing him forced to answer for his actions. Finally, in a heated exchange, one of the panel members turned to Reese and asked, "Officer Reese, can you provide any explanation? any at all, for how these missing sections of footage align with the timeline where Miss Jefferson's compliance is evident? If your story is true, why would the recording vanish at the most critical moment? Reese gripped the edges of the table, sweat beading on his brow. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he mumbled, "I can't explain it. It might have been a malfunction." But the panel member shook his head, unconvinced. A malfunction that conveniently protects your narrative and harms Miss Jefferson's? That's quite the coincidence. An uneasy silence fell, broken only by the scratch of pens on notepads. Then the lead panel officer declared, "We will adjourn to deliberate." The room emptied, everyone left to wait in the hallway. Amelia stood by Jordan and Linda, feeling the tension in every cell of her body. Reese's lies had collapsed under scrutiny. Now the question was whether the department would fully hold him accountable. Nearly an hour later, the panel reassembled. Amelia and the others filed back in, hearts pounding. The lead panel officer cleared his throat and read from a prepared statement. After reviewing all available evidence and testimony, we find that Officer Reese engaged in serious misconduct, including falsification of official documents, tampering with evidence, and providing false statements under oath. We recommend immediate termination of his employment with the Atlanta Police Department and the initiation of criminal charges for evidence tampering and perjury. A collective hush fell over the room. Reese's face contorted with a mix of fury and disbelief. He stood, glaring at Amelia, and began shouting. Security personnel quickly escorted him out. Amelia felt her chest tighten. She had expected him to face consequences, but hearing it declared so definitively brought tears to her eyes. The lead panel officer turned to Amelia. "Miss Jefferson, on behalf of the department, we apologize for the distress this has caused you. We are grateful for your cooperation and regret that one of our own violated your rights. We hope to ensure such injustices are prevented in the future." It was a formal statement, but Amelia appreciated the sentiment. She nodded, her voice catching as she murmured, "Thank you." Outside, the world felt bigger and brighter. Reporters awaited news, but Amelia avoided the cameras this time. She and Linda stepped aside to speak privately. "We did it," Linda said, grasping Amelia's shoulders. "He's off the force, and he'll likely face charges. This is a victory for sure." Amelia closed her eyes, relief washing over her like a cool wave. "Thank you, Linda. I couldn't have done any of this without you." Jordan joined them, smiling broadly. "Time to celebrate?" The corner of Amelia's mouth lifted in a half-smile. "Yes. But after everything, I also want to keep pushing forward to make sure real change happens." They walked away from the building arm in arm, Amelia's heart racing with gratitude, triumph, and an unbreakable determination to fight for those who were still voiceless in a flawed system. In the weeks that followed, Amelia found her life in flux. She continued her assignments with the FBI, but she also took a more public stance against corruption and racial profiling. With the blessing of her superiors, who recognized the positive publicity her stance brought to an agency often viewed with skepticism, Amelia spoke at community forums and youth centers, sharing her story and advocating for justice reforms. Her mother, upon hearing the full truth, cried tears of both relief and pride. Amelia's extended family embraced her, rallying behind her mission. Her fiancé, Jordan, continued to be her rock, supporting each new venture and reminding her to balance activism with self-care. Friends and strangers reached out, telling Amelia how her story had touched them, how it gave them hope in a world that often seemed tilted against them. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Police Department underwent a rigorous internal review. More officers came forward with stories of intimidation by Reese. The city's mayor announced the formation of a new oversight committee to handle misconduct allegations. Though Amelia knew one case couldn't fix all systemic issues, she felt a surge of optimism at seeing tangible steps toward reform. One late afternoon, Amelia sat at her kitchen table drafting notes for an upcoming community lecture. She was due to speak at a local college about bridging the gap between law enforcement and marginalized communities. The desk phone rang, an internal line from the FBI. "Agent Jefferson," she answered. Her supervisor's voice came through. Good news. The brass was impressed with how you handled yourself, both in revealing your identity at the right time and in advocating for justice. There might be an opening in the Bureau's Civil Rights Division. Interested? Amelia's pulse quickened. Absolutely, she said. That's my passion. Expect a formal offer soon, her supervisor said. We're proud of you. Amelia hung up, a grin stretching across her face. The events of the past months had been harrowing, but they had also led her to a new purpose. She would continue to serve her country, but now with an even more focused mission, protecting civil rights from within the system and ensuring that no one else was victimized by corrupted authority. As she wrote her speech, Amelia recalled the terrifying moment when Reese handcuffed her on that dark street. She remembered how her heart had pounded in fear and anger, yet through resilience, truth, and the courage of allies like Xavier Mitchell and Linda Polk, justice had emerged triumphant. Amelia intended to carry that lesson forward, shining a light on wrongdoing wherever it lurked, and reminding everyone that even in a flawed system, there was power in standing up for what was right. Amelia Jefferson's journey from a quiet, disciplined FBI agent to a public figure confronting corruption proves that truth can indeed conquer lies. She faced humiliation, betrayal, and the threat of a criminal record, all because of a single cop's bias and deception. Yet, by trusting in her allies and ultimately revealing her position at the heart of U.S. intelligence, Amelia dismantled a web of falsehoods and inspired a city to demand real change. Now it's your turn to keep the momentum going. If Amelia's story touched you, if it renewed your faith that justice can prevail against all odds, please show your support. Like this video, share it with your community, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that illuminate our collective fight for fairness and truth. Together, we stand stronger against injustice, shining a light where darkness lurks, and forging a brighter tomorrow for everyone.